Greetings, dudes and dudettes. Rex here, king of awesomeness and master storyteller, with a rockin' multi-part story known as Nightriders Battle of the Bands. Whether you have already read the story or not, prepare to experience the first Nightriders adventure in its fully narrated fury. The story is a heavy metal fairy tale of three animal rockers traveling to the music metropolis of Beach City to provide a headbanging concert for the masses, only to find out that they have signed on for far more than what they bargained for. So, will the rockin' skills of a wolf, a lion, and a swamp lizard prove enough to conquer the forces of evil? Well, that remains to be seen as we kick off with Part 1 of Battle of the Bands. Enjoy!
After a long day of travel, Axel Rains, the lizard heavy metal star, was lying on top of the Nightriders band van. With his hands under his head, he heaved a heavy sigh as the heat of the sun warmed his cold-blooded body. He was in a dreamy, relaxed state. His tongue quickly shot in and out of his mouth. He closed his eyes and a smile curled at his lips as he enjoyed the brief change of pace from the busy life of a full-time touring musician. Many pleasures awaited him in the metropolis of Beach City. Ah, the sandy beach, the ocean, the clubs, the guitar and record stores. These thoughts, complemented by the warmth of the sun, brought Axel deeper into his peaceful state. "Hey, Axel!" a gruff voice shouted, pulling Axel from his reverie. "Get your scaly butt down from there and help us load up the van. The last thing I need is for you to be a lazy lizard." Axel leaned forward and saw his gray-haired wolf bandmate Rolf standing on the side of the van, with his arms at his sides, appearing quite annoyed. "Ugh, all right, coming," Axel said as he yawned and stretched out his arms. He then fluidly slid off the side of the van. "Oh, what do you need, buddy?" Rolf motioned toward the tables, chairs, and cooler that had been set outside the van for their rest stop. "Help us load the van. We still have a long drive ahead of us." Sure," replied Axel with another yawn as he readjusted his spiked collar. "Rolf, there's no need to be such a boss," Lonnie, the shaggy-haired lion, said as he stepped out of the van. He was the drummer, and he always wore a white tank top with shades. "This ain't a dictatorship, you know. It's one for all and all for one, remember?" "Yeah, whatever," Rolf muttered. "But we got a schedule to keep, and you two bums are acting like sloths." "Oh, come on, Rolf," Lonnie snickered. "We've got plenty of time." Yeah, Rolf grumbled. "You guys will be helpless without me." Rolf started to fold the lawn chairs. Axel lifted the cooler and carried it to the van. "Hey, don't let him chase you away like our last front man," Lonnie said as he put his hand on Axel's shoulder. Axel chuckled as they entered the van. "Chase away? Ha! I've been in worse situations. Believe me when I say I've put up with bandmates who've literally wanted to kill me. Don't worry, buddy. I'm here to stay." Despite his confident reply, Axel knew in part this was a product of his wishful thinking. Being tossed from one dead-end band to the next had been his experience in the music industry, and it was not until a swift stroke of luck had presented him the opportunity to please Rolf through an audition that he had been catapulted into the limelight. Knowing about Rolf's infamous temper, he was aware from the beginning that remaining on good terms with Rolf would be the biggest challenge for him if he was to retain his new role as the lead vocalist of the Nightriders. At Axel's answer, Lonnie patted him on the shoulder with a smile. "Well, that's a relief, 'cause I'm not sure I can handle Rolf on my own." Axel returned the smile. Lonnie's company was a refreshing contrast to Rolf's critical personality. While Axel set the cooler in the back of the van, Rolf and Lonnie loaded the chairs. The interior of the van had slightly worn brown seats and gray carpeting. As usual, empty soda cans, cupcake wrappers, and equipment were cluttered about. As Lonnie got behind the wheel and pulled out of the rest stop, Rock City by Smooch played on the radio. "This is gonna be a long ride," Axel thought. He sank into his seat and closed his eyes. A few hours had passed without incident. Axel and Rolf jammed on their guitars and sang with the music to help pass the time. Lonnie drove, bobbing his head to the beat. Axel leaned his head back in his seat and played a riff on the guitar, allowing his thoughts to drift. They had been on the road for 2 months, playing to sold-out venues of screaming, headbanging fans. It was quite the change of pace from his life before he joined the band. The local venues in Axel's hometown at Greenwood Swamp lacked in the level of excitement compared to playing in a stadium full of fanatical fans. People would visit the small rundown clubs in Greenwood Swamp because they had nothing better to do. But the people at the stadiums and large music theaters were there because they were real Nightriders fans, who would slap down their hard-earned cash to watch their favorite musicians in person. They knew the songs lyric for lyric, note for note, as well as the names of the band members. This was the most interesting change for Axel, as it was amazing and frightening at the same time. Fans would chant his name after shows, begging for an autograph and a photo. Needless to say, the fans had taken to him quite well, considering it was almost a year ago when the shocking news hit the music scene that longtime Coyote lead vocalist Mac Manson had left after having released 3 successful albums with the Nightriders. While Rolf assured the media they would find a suitable replacement for Mac, the departure of the longtime lead vocalist brought into question the future of the band. After all, his voice had become synonymous to music fans as the voice of the Nightriders. Would the new lead vocalist carry the same stage presence and singing ability as one so accomplished as Mac? The media cited the breakup due to irreconcilable differences, but the rumor was that Mac's career with the Nightriders had fallen victim to Rolf's harsh, condescending attitude. Axel only hoped his own personality had the perseverance to withstand the tantrums of the wolf. So far, all conflict between himself and the ill-tempered Rolf had been limited to minor squabbles and criticisms over his technique. Apart from this, they had been off to a relatively good start since he had won over Rolf at the audition. Axel looked over at Rolf and furrowed his brow. The furry canine was growling to himself as he struggled to open a soda bottle. "Stupid bottle!" Rolf shouted, breaking the top of the glass on his guitar case. Axel frowned as soda splashed onto his 3-toed foot. Ignoring Rolf's small tantrum over the soda bottle, Axel returned to playing various guitar riffs on his red V-shaped guitar. Having to constantly perform Nightriders songs at each gig, Axel enjoyed playing songs from other bands in between shows. It was relaxing as well as a throwback to the days before becoming a professional musician, when he would sit on his parents' back porch at the swamp and play to the sounds of nature. Axel was very close to mastering a very particular riff he had been trying to learn from a new song by Dragonfire, one of his favorite metal bands. "Yuck. I still can't believe you actually like Dragonfire," Rolf said in disgust, jarring Axel from his personal performance. "They play their music so fast that it's not even music." Axel burst into laughter. "Too fast? Since when is it possible to play metal too fast?" "Yeah, well, the way they go about it is all wrong," Rolf said, struggling for an answer. Axel crossed his arms and leaned forward as if listening intently. "Uh-huh? Why?" he said with a smirk. Rolf scratched his furry head as he stammered. Suddenly, Rolf's eyes lit up. Because all their music sounds the same. When are they gonna experiment and grow musically as a band?" Axel rolled his reptilian eyes and scoffed. "Right. Like your favorite metal band, Bells of Hell?" As soon as the words left his mouth, Axel could tell from Rolf's narrowed eyes that he had once again managed to bring his bandmate to his boiling point. Even though it was never pretty, Axel strangely found it amusing to watch Rolf resort to his angry tirades when he was cornered in an argument. Rolf angrily leaned forward. "Don't you ever compare Bells of Hell to Dragonfire in front of me again," he growled, glaring at Axel. Axel chuckled as he tried to reduce the tension. "Okay, Rolf, chill. Jeez, you overreact." He held up his hands in surrender. In an irritated fashion, Rolf dropped his blue Les Paul to the floor. "You know, with your taste and knowledge of music, it makes me wonder if the only reason we hired your scaly hide in the first place is because you can stick your tongue out farther than Sean Clemens." In response, Axel reclined in his chair and stretched out his arms. "What can I say? Being a lizard does have its perks." Then, to Rolf's disgust, Axel lapped a mouthful of chocolate raisins from a nearby container with his long tongue. Rolf released a long, annoyed sigh and shook his head. "I hate it when you do that." With an intentional loud gulp, Axel swallowed the raisins. "I know," he said with a grin. Lonnie, who had been listening to the lively conversation of his bandmates, was no longer able to contain his emotions and burst into laughter from the driver's seat. "Find something funny?" Rolf snarled. "Yep," Lonnie replied as he grinned at Rolf through the rearview mirror. "Listening to you is always funny." Axel smiled again. This was going to be a good tour. "Say hello to the Silvergate Bridge, guys," Lonnie announced cheerfully. Axel leaned forward to peer out the windshield as they approached the shiny suspension bridge. Beyond the bridge, tall skyscrapers stretched toward the sky. The late afternoon sun cast shadows from the buildings over the city and parts of the Marine Bay as it set in the west, giving a serene appearance that contrasted deeply with the fast-paced, chaotic world that existed within. The city looked majestic and certainly what Axel expected of a place known as the capital of music and art in the nation of the United Animal Kingdom. "We should totally hit up one of the clubs tonight," Lonnie beamed at Rolf and Axel through the rearview mirror. "Nuh-uh, guys," Rolf shouted and held up his hands. "We need to head over to the Snail and unload so we can be good to go for tomorrow." "Come on, Rolf," Lonnie protested. "We've been out on the road all day. We got time." "He's right, Rolf," Axel nodded his head in agreement. He couldn't wait to stretch his limbs and have a fun night out in the town. It had been a while since Axel had traveled to the big city. Even though they had a busy schedule, he had hoped to be able to slow down enough to absorb the brilliant culture and atmosphere at the center of music and art that Beach City was reputed to be. "It's been a long day. It's not like it's going to take us that long to unload and set up tomorrow. I was kind of hoping to take it easy tonight." "It's not just the setting up," Rolf growled. "We've never performed at this venue before, and I need to inspect the stage and equipment. It also wouldn't be a bad idea if we rehearsed and did a sound check." "We've been rehearsing the entire year!" Axel snapped, feeling agitated. "I don't think one more night is gonna matter." "Every minute I've put into this band has mattered. It's when bands get lazy and careless like you two that they become yesterday's news." Rolf angrily stomped his feet. "Whoa now, wait just 1 minute," Lonnie protested. "We're not being lazy and careless. All we're asking for is to have a little fun in our downtime." Once again, Axel found himself in the reoccurring predicament of biting his long tongue while dealing with Rolf's harsh personality. "I can only take so much of this guy today," was the thought that kept running through his head. Axel scratched the top of his head as he prepared to do what he found to work best with Rolf and offered him a compromise. "All right, Rolf, if you want to spend the entire evening messing with equipment, that's your business, but Lonnie and I are taking the opportunity to get out in civilization tonight." Rolf leaned forward, speaking in a scolding voice. "Don't forget, Lizard, that just because you spend the most time in the spotlight, those are my songs you are performing. This is my band." Axel bit his tongue in annoyance. Rolf's declaration that the Nightriders was his band was a ridiculous notion. It was true that Rolf was the band's founder, however, it was only partially true that Rolf still served as the band's primary songwriter. Prior to having joined the band, Axel was well aware that Rolf received the most songwriting credit, with Mac and Lonnie only making minor contributions. At least this was what Rolf had led the public to believe. Axel, however, found this to be far from the truth. During his first recording with the band, he shared many musical ideas, which Rolf more often than not reluctantly embraced in the end. He had indeed written a significant amount of material for the latest Nightriders album, but at the expense of Rolf retaining most of the credit in the record sleeves and CD booklets. In spite of the production wars between the two, the album proved to be very well received in sales and reviews, even being heralded by some as their best work to date. Regardless, the album managed to bring the Nightriders back on the radar of music fans since Mac's unpopular and controversial departure. Axel shook his head in frustration. "Whatever, Rolf. Lonnie and I are gonna have fun tonight. There's nothing you can do to stop us." Recognizing that Axel and Lonnie were set in their ways, Rolf let out a long, frustrated sigh before muttering under his breath, "I'm the only responsible one in this band." Axel and Lonnie rolled their eyes and shook their heads as a tense silence enveloped the van.
Sheesh, guys, we're not even out of the first chapter, and our protagonists are already arguing over music semantics. You'd think this was the internet or something. Will Axel be able to conquer the opinionated and rigid Rolf Steiner? Will Rolf suddenly have an epiphany and become easygoing and nice? Will I shut up with the questions and allow this video to end? Fine. Join us in the next video for part 2 of Nightriders Battle of the Bands. Later, Gator. Stay metal.